Thanks for taking the time to do this, man. I'll just kind of start it off. Maybe just talk about obviously retiring from the NFL and transitioning into our preseason broadcast TV role, and then talk about, the success of those Super Bowl guys, Harper, Greer, Vilma, Bush, and obviously Deuce and Zach in the booth. Just talk about that Super Bowl team success post-playing career.
I think what's important to note is that there were so many guys on that Super Bowl team that like to talk and like to hear themselves talk that it's impressive they found ways to get paid for that very endeavor. I often tease Zach Strief that if people knew how much he enjoyed talking and that he would offer his opinion for free, that there's no need for them to pay him. But obviously he's not alone. I think it speaks to the just the exceptional group of men that Mickey Loomis and Coach Payton and that entire organization was able to put together. It was a special group, and I enjoy watching Vilma and hearing Roman, and Deuce has done such a good job for such a long time. So not only as a teammate but a fan of those individuals. It's fun to see and hear them still to this day. I mean, there's a lot of guys from that team that we don't get to keep up with and keep in contact with as much or as well. But just to hear them on a recurring basis, it's fun to watch. And, it extends to Lance is doing some stuff, and obviously Reggie, there's just a number of guys. But, for me, when I transitioned away from the game, you're trying to look at ways to stay connected with something that you're passionate about, a field that you've committed so much of your life to and have enjoyed. I mean, we all enjoy the game, and it's been good to us. So being able to announce is just one way that for me, I felt like I could stay connected, and specifically with the Saints. Some of the media stuff that obviously I've been doing the Saints preseason, but I've also partnered with a local group, Dog Nation, that reports on Georgia Bulldog football. So I'm a total homer. I try to offer it's only slightly biased report when you're talking about both those teams, but they're near and dear to my heart, and I'm just grateful for those opportunities.
Stinch, what do you make of what the Saints were able to do this offseason? I know it's tough to really tell until they actually get on the field, but a lot of the parts they had are returning. So, I guess the guys they were able to add to complement those parts. What do you make of what they were able to do?
I continue to think that there's wizards working in that second floor over off of in Metairie, because it always seems like the storyline at the beginning of free agency or whatever it is how cash strapped the Saints are, and they're one of the teams that has the least mobility because of the salary cap and where they've allocated funds. But yet they seem to find pieces that complement that roster and what they have returning, and do it in such an extraordinary way. I think part of it is the culture that's been created in New Orleans is one where it's desirable to play for the Saints. Guys want to play for Coach Payton. Guys want to be on the same team as Cam Jordan and Drew and Michael Thomas, and just that culture that's notorious and well known across the league for being something special in New Orleans, that they're able to draw guys, and they've been able to pick and choose some of the ones that, you look at this roster and what they have returning from last year to this year, and there's not a lot of holes. So I think they did really well in the draft. I think you were able to address some needs and really some wants. Got to be excited about that first round pick and more stability up front. So just again, the way this organization is set up, it's not like they're chasing after some of these big contract guys in hopes of renovating and jump-starting something that isn't already pre-existent. I mean, the Saints right now are in the discussion in the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year, at the end of the year, as a Super Bowl contender. And I think that speaks volumes to how they're built from the ground up.
Since you played on some veteran teams, how quickly can a team come together? I guess, especially with no offseason program, how quickly can a team kind of assemble and find a rhythm?
Well, that's tough. I mean, it usually takes all off season to get to know guys and understand personalities and try to meld them together. But if I'm thinking back to our Super Bowl year, we had some new pieces that came in that you weren't exactly sure how they were going to fit. And there's times where you have to get to know and assimilate with one another in a short amount of time and kind of learn on the fly. And what helps to do that is when you've got exceptional talent and great core leadership. And that's what the Saints have that other teams don't. I would really, if you're a first year coach, if you've got a lot of turnover in key positions, they're up against it. And I'm sure they're recognizing the challenge that was pre-existent under normal circumstances, but I think there's a real advantage to looking at a roster like the Saints and say there's so much carryover and great leadership that you're built to kind of withstand some of the outside distractions that other teams aren't.
Jon, just kind of keeping the focus on this year's roster for now. What do you make of the Saints' current offensive tackle duo they have?
Oh man, it's the best in the league. The only question is how many games can you keep Teron Armstead healthy each year? Because they're the two best, in my opinion, they're the best left tackle, right tackle combo that there is. There's some really good ones out there, but Ramczyk, I told him when I ran into him in the locker room this past season, I said, he plays the game the way I wanted to play it. And he's got the ability and the mindset and the execution that he's a perennial Pro Bowler for a reason. I mean, the guy he's solid. He's consistent. They're the anchor of that team and have provided such great opportunities. You look at some of these guys and they excel in the run game, or they're really good at pass pro. And both Teron and Ryan, they're both great in both aspects of that team and that approach. They're really good in pass pro, athletic, move well, and create holes in the run game. So real strength, and you complement that with some young talent and 2 first-round draft picks that continue to stabilize the interior of that line. Man, it's exciting to watch. I think you look at the Saints era under Coach Payton and Mickey Loomis, and that's been a hallmark, is the investment in guys up front. And they continue to find the right combos. And this is probably the best that the NFL has to offer right now.
I'm sure when you were playing, on that Super Bowl team or back in 2010, you weren't ever thinking about the possibility of Drew Brees suiting up in 2020. But now that you have the benefit of hindsight and you're able to look back on things, or was there like a moment in your career where you look back on it and you're like, well, now it makes sense that he's still playing at 41 years old?
Well, he's special. I mean, the guy, you talk about work ethic and approach to the game and understanding that there's more to it for him than just playing his position. We recognized it every day you came to practice, every day you went on the field with him, that he's just different. His approach to the game, his approach to life, what he puts into it, his focus. I mean, honestly, by, 2010, that's 5 years into Coach Payton's system. For a lot of us, it was a struggle to take notes on plays that we've been running for 5 years. And you look over and you see Drew's folder and he's on page 52 of notes. And it's stuff that, he knows backwards and forwards and can teach and knows every detail. But that's his focus level and his ability to stay engaged at 110 miles per hour consistently. He's different, and you could recognize that. Who knew, that it would still be in 2020, but the way the game is set up now and the amount of resources that are available that guys tap into, on a 365-day basis, you can see some of the careers of these quarterbacks extended well into their 40s. And having watched him play these past few years, I don't see a lot of drop off. So, we're not to the twilight years that we've come to expect from these quarterbacks that, stick around for a year or two too long and they're just holding on to the rope. Drew wasn't anywhere close to that last year, and I don't expect him to be this year either.
I mean, you brought up the focus in the notebook and everything, but is there like an example of how that focus is maybe different from other people beyond just like having the ability to process things?
You know what? It's kind of who he is. So it makes me think of, you come back for training camp, and I've spent the last 6 weeks that we were apart at a training facility and getting ready for the conditioning test and trying to be prepared for the 20-week grinder of a season and postseason and all those things. And it's really an inner focus of preparing myself to be the best I can offer to my team. And for him, he usually comes back with, this is going to be, or what do you guys think about this being our chant before the game? And I read this book about leadership that I think would be really good. And there's some things that our team can really draw from. And that's his ability to be selfless and think about others that sticks out. That's kind of his approach. And, when I talk to schools, you talk about the work and dedication that he brings, in season. When you're hurt, you have to be there by like 6:30 to come in early, get your treatment. Your first team meetings not till 8, and you're guaranteed not to be the first car in the parking lot because Drew's already going to be there. And then on Thursday nights, the offensive line goes to dinner, and usually you have to get there by 6:30, and sometimes he's late. You have to order for him, and he'll meet you there when the meal gets there, and not because he's being rude, but because he's still up at the facility working on the game plan with the coaches and breaking down film. So it's that level of commitment. Aside from him stocking the Advocare racks with supplements because it's something that he believes in, and the amount of care that he takes for his body. But it's just that holistic approach that it's never selfish. It's always selfless. And it extends to literally every aspect of his approach to the game.
When you look at this Saints roster, I know they've had a lot of success in the past of finding undrafted rookie free agents. Do you think because of the depth of the roster and just all this uncertainty with training camp and whatnot, it could be a really hard year for some of these unknown guys to stick around on the 53-man roster?
Well, it's going to be a challenge across all 32. But if you look historically at the Saints, their commitment to the best 53-man roster, I think their track record speaks for itself. There was a little fella who didn't look the part last year. He's undersized and, he's playing wide receiver, and you stand him next to, a guy like Michael Thomas, and he looks pretty diminutive and ends the year as a Pro Bowler, as an undrafted receiver. I think that's a good testament and something that you want on your resume when you're recruiting these undrafted free agents, as you're going to have a chance. If you're a player and you can make plays and you can help our team, we'll find a spot for you. And yes, the window is smaller. Yes, it's an uphill battle. But if I'm looking across the board at the 32 opportunities of what might be a good situation for me as an undrafted guy, despite the fact that there's incredible depth in New Orleans, at least I know I've got a fair shake. If I can perform and I can play, then I'm going to get my chance.
John, how do you think you would have approached just the kind of strangeness of this offseason and the uncertainty of just kind of how the season is going to unfold?
Well, it's similar to 2010, 2011 offseason. That was the lockout, and that there's a lot of self-accountability. We're not at the facility. You're going to have to train. It's tough, man. I mean, the self-motivation, those players that can find it intrinsically, that motivation to keep pushing, I think there's going to be a very distinct difference between those guys that were able to keep your weight in check, keep your nutrition where it should be, mentally prepare, physically prepare, and get ready for this season, as compared to those that say, I think this is close. I think this is all right. I think we're going to see a real distinction between those players that have excelled on their own and found that intrinsic push, and those that would normally rely on a strength coach and a nutritionist staying on top of them and getting them to where they need to be. It's a challenge, buddy. It is not an easy situation for anyone, but I think will be really evident when you watch these players take the field as to those that were able to meet that adversity and have those intrinsic skills and abilities to push when others can't.
Does anybody have anything else for Jon?
Yeah, I got one more if you don't mind, Evan. So you got to this franchise in 2003, obviously a couple years before Sean and Drew got here. What has it been like for you watching it? Obviously, you were part of the Super Bowl team, but kind of go from where it was when you got here to where it is now as a team with the Super Bowl title and a team that's continuously year in, year out, competing for a title.
Well, I couldn't be more proud to be a part of the organization and to represent it. And I don't know that that's always been the case for former players that had a fleur-de-lis on the side of their helmet, that it's not always been a situation where you would want to be boastful that you're a part of that organization. I live in Atlanta now, and I can't tell you how many times I harass the Dirty Birds in my area that, want to chirp and have things to say. But New Orleans has become an organization that has changed their national image. And so much credit in my mind goes to Mr. Benson and Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton and that entire staff. It took its toll on those of us who were around in that 2006 season because they had to create a new culture. And that is a difficult proposition for any organization. And for those that had to suffer through that training camp at Millsaps, it was brutal. It took years off our life. The coaches can joke about it now, but I still don't think it's funny. It was the 6 weeks of torture, and there was probably some crimes that were committed, and they possibly belong in Guantanamo. But it definitely was for the benefit of the organization. And you look back and you look at the way this team has competed and stayed at the top. There was a little lull in for a couple of years, but aside from that, what New Orleans has been able to do on an annual basis is really impressive. And we're still that one Super Bowl away from being that perennial New England Patriots type team that stays at the top. But I think it's a real different New Orleans Saints organization and perspective and image today than what it was in 2003 when my name was called on draft day. It's just commendable what they've been able to do.
Good to see you've worked through that bitterness, Stinch.
No, it's not going away, JD. That is deeply embedded. And Joe Vitt and Coach Payton will laugh, and they're, it was miserable. I think, yeah, Well, when I die 3 years before I was supposed to, just know I'm still holding you accountable for that.
Hey, Jon, how do you evaluate the play of Eric McCoy on last season?
Well, he was a talented guy coming out of college, and you see his skills from day one. There was definite development from preseason game number one to the end of the year. It's a long season for anybody, but for a rookie to step in, I thought he played exceptionally well given the circumstances. You are surrounded by Pro Bowlers. That offensive line from one side to the other, they've all been able to represent the NFC at one time or another in that Pro Bowl game. So I think he leaned on that at times, and as well as he should. But the future is super bright for him. The way he moves, his physicality, you saw him get that offensive line coordinated and on the same page. Now you're looking at a veteran bunch that he was surrounded by. So that definitely helped him. But he played really well, start to finish. There's going to be growing pains. I mean, you come in as a rookie and you're going to take your lumps at times, but I think the leap that I'm expecting from that 2020 season or 2019 season to 2020, he's only going to get better, and he definitely has the skill set to be one of the upper echelon centers or interior players in this league.